Planning Committee. Same to everybody here. Happy New Year to you all. No, there's no glass of wine nor sandwiches. Sign the minutes of the Planning Committee held in December. Is your wish I sign the true and correct record, please? Agreed? Okay. Apologies for absence.
Apologies received from Councillors Deanna Egan and Wendy Varney, Chairman.
Right. Any more?
Councillor Deanna Eden, Chairman.
That's what she just said.
Oh, this is.
It's all right, Councillor Ball. It doesn't harm to overstay.
Yeah, why not?
Right.
You're not as drunk as you drunk, I am.
Members' interests. Councillor Irving-Swift.
Yes, I have a planning application on page 106, so I will leave the room.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other interest? No? Party whipping arrangements.
No.
No.
To members of the public, that means we don't get together as political parties or groups before a planning committee and decide how we're going to vote. Every person votes their own ballot. Right, first of all, there are a couple of applications. One is deferred, which is the first one at Bowden, and the second one at Woodford Holes has been withdrawn. They are both at the request of the applicant, so they can offer more information at a later date. Right, members of the public, my list to tell you all. The fire alarm rings, please go out either the way you came in or through those doors there. There's no test tonight, so it should be get out. Please switch your mobile devices to silent mode, and I haven't done mine, so if mine goes off it'll sound awful as well. To tell you the proceedings are being recorded. Speakers will have 3 minutes. After that you'll hear a tone and be asked to wind up. If you don't wind up, well, I suppose you'll nicely be told to wind up instead. This is the only opportunity for you to speak. The people that put the name don't speak anyway, so you won't be able to speak during the rest of the debate. So please don't interrupt. Please don't clap, cheer, hiss or boo, which I'm sure you won't. You don't look like a cheer, clap, hiss or boo group tonight. And you will see officers talking during the time when speakers are talking, which looks incredibly bad manners. It probably looks that way, but it's the only way we can carry the planning committee on, because they are talking between them to answer the questions that you're raising during your speech. And members, an update on the performance. And I can find it. Yes, I've got it. Slightly difference. First of all, the speed of decisions, we're up to 84%. So that's well above the 40% that we should be. Now the other bit, it's 3% have been overturned at appeal. That's compared to the 92 major applications determined between the 1st of January 2013 and the 31st of December 2014. So now if 16 or more major applications are overturned on appeal before the 30th of September, the government's 20% threshold will be exceeded and special measures would be followed. Now at the moment there are 7 major applications pending appeal. But as well as the 7 pending, there are up to 20 in the pipeline that probably will as well. So it's not, it's still okay. And the 7 we've got, to me they look half reasonable, that we stand a very good chance with. But there are another 20 in the pipeline to come, and as the year advances towards September, there will be more in the pipeline, I'm sure.
sorry, a matter of housekeeping, and I'm sorry to bring it up, but it would be very nice if either the door below is kept open for 20 minutes prior or 5 minutes after the start of the meeting or whatever. But, I feel extremely disgruntled that members of the public are waiting outside and, I have to swipe my card because of, I know we can ring a bell and I know the security officer is somewhere, but it would be nice if it could be, the door could be open during, the beginning of the meeting and perhaps 5 minutes afterwards.
Thank you,
Just a
Councillor.
comment, Chairman.
Right.
That is in place now, subject to feedback we've had previously from members, Councillor Paul. So I believe he opened the door from 6 and it's still open at the moment.
Yes, it wouldn't open until I rang the bell tonight, but however.
Councillor Irving, sir?
Sorry, if the door is open, do we have somebody at the door to check who is coming in and out?
No, you can only access, they can't get beyond, they can only get into that lobby, they can go into the committee rooms, there's not access to the main building, it's just, they could go along that way or come straight upstairs, so it's the rest of the building secure.
Okay.
And also, sorry, Chairman, did we give the apology for your daughter, Diane?
No, I have no apologies for my daughter, I'm afraid. So I don't know where she is tonight.
Sorry.
Okay. Right. We now move to the application.
Chairman, before we do that, could I just make a few comments about the joint core strategy? Since this committee last met, it has been adopted.
Well, yes, you can.
And I just wanted
Although it's fairly quick.
Yeah, I just wanted to remind people that the joint core strategy was adopted at the Joint Strategic Planning Committee on the 15th of December. And I'm asked to read out this two sentences. Any person aggrieved by the West Northamptonshire Joint Core Strategy Local Plan Part 1 may make an application to the High Court under Section 113 of the Planning and Compulsory Purchase Act 2004 as amended. Any challenge must be made on the grounds that either the document has not been prepared within the powers conferred by Part 2 of the Act and or alternatively that a procedural requirement of the Act or associated regulations has not been complied with, and any such application must be made no later than 6 weeks after the date of adoption, that is, no later than 26th of January. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. To all members that weren't there, it was an interesting night. It was a casting vote. It was quite nasty. There were some vicious comments made. I wasn't very impressed with some of them. They even came up to me and didn't like the way I tried to defend some of your villages, suggesting that some of the villages I mentioned with some of the development was peanuts compared with what they were getting in Northampton. But it wasn't a pleasant evening, was it?
Here again.
Okay, we go to planning applications now, and the first one is Barbie, which is 0641.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll draw members' attention to the late representations and in particular comments received from the applicant's agent in respect of the rating statement and the subsequent response of the District Council's engineer advising that there is a need for some form of attenuation but is satisfied that could be dealt with by condition. You'll see the officer's comments further down the page on the late representations in response to both the DEC engineer recommending an additional condition and also in response to comments by the landscape officer in respect of an additional bullet point to condition 7. Turning to the application, you'll see the report set out in the committee agenda is quite a comprehensive report and I don't propose to go through it in detail. Suffice it to say that the application has been considered against the provisions of both the safe policies of the development plan and the recently adopted joint core strategy, as well as the other significant material considerations, in particular the national planning framework, which all set out a presumption in favour of sustainable development. The application itself, the site is there on the presentation board. You'll see that it sits to the south of the village, but is surrounded on 3 sides by residential development. The southern boundary of the site has a fairly well-established hedge which effectively screens it from the public footpath that lies further to the south and touches the southwest corner of the site. You see a line running north-south through the middle of the site. That was a hedgerow, is a hedgerow, which was the subject of a replacement order under the hedgerow regulations. And again, you'll see that hedgerow was replaced and has been taken into account in the proposed layout. Let's go to the layout now. We just turned the site round on its side, but north is to the left-hand side, south is to the right-hand side. Bowling Close is accessed off Daventry Road to the bottom of the presentation slide. That's currently a private road. The application is an outline application with seeking details of access and layout at this particular stage. And in response to comments from the Highway Authority, the applicants have agreed to bring the road up to adoptable standards, which effectively means the widening of the road at its front junction with Daventry Road, increasing the width to 6.7 metres, resulting in the loss of part of the historic wall of the road frontage of 1.9 metres. The remainder of the road will be built to adoptable standards. As I say, we built to adoptable standards with sufficient turning areas to allow for adequate access and egress from the site in a safe manner. And you'll see from the report that the Highway Authority have raised no objections to the application. Turning to the hedgerow that runs through the middle of the site, which now runs across the middle, that is to be retained with only 2 breaks to provide access for the dwellings proposed. As I say, in planning terms, the proposal is judged to be compliant with the recently adopted Joint Core Strategy document in terms of being a sustainable form of development. Whilst it could be argued that there's conflict with SAY policies in the development plan, the counter-argument to that is that those housing policies in respect of limited development, housing policies on limited development restricted regional villages are effectively turned off by the fact that the council has a lack of 5-year land supply, and therefore weighing the harm against the benefits of the proposal, argues the application should be approved. And accordingly, the recommendation is to approve, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eamon. We have 2 speakers. First of all, Miss Cavalier is against it.
I submitted some photographs. Will they be brought up or?
Very well indeed.
Okay. Appendix A. Barb is an infill village. The proposed site at Bowling Close sits outside of the village boundary. All properties surrounding the site currently back onto it. Therefore, building here will constitute backfill and not infill. The NPPF refers us to the local plan, and the local plan, as published on the DVC website, contains policy R1, which clearly states residential development in rural areas will be required to protect the amenity of existing residents and be within the existing confines of the village. The site is elevated against its surroundings and is currently greenfield, the surface of which is available in its entirety for drainage. However, during heavy rain, gardens in Brackendale Drive are subject to excessive water runoff from the site. Building on this site will only increase this runoff by reducing the amount of permeable surface, thus exacerbating the situation. The responsibility for maintenance of the ditch running along the eastern boundary of the site, parallel to Brackendale Drive, is currently the responsibility of residents whose gardens border the site. It's unclear on the plan what provisions are to be made in order to maintain the ditch to prevent flooding of gardens. Residents would like assurance that loss of permeable surface due to this potential new development would not have any detrimental effect on their property. Appendix B. A line has been marked to illustrate the proximity of the proposed widened road and new pavement to existing property in Bowling Close. The proposal will bring the pavement unacceptably close to existing property, therefore increasing noise, disturbance levels, reducing residential amenity and hugely reducing the visual impact of Bowling Close by losing a significant amount of grass verge and mature trees. Appendix C. The proposal plans show the removal of a large percentage of a listed wall which presents itself to the entrance of Balding Close. This wall is one of the few remaining visible structures from the original site. When the current properties in the close were built, the wall was damaged by developers. DDC deemed this wall so significant that it instructed it to be rebuilt to original specification using original materials. This was such an important point that it prevented current residents from completing on the purchase of their new homes in the close, and they had to move in under licence, only completing after DDC was satisfied the wall had been correctly reinstated. Sometime later, a refuse lorry hit the wall, causing damage, and again the council stepped in, insisting that the wall was reinstated in accordance with its listed status using original materials. As you can see from the photographs, the proposal for this development is to lose not only the virgin trees which define this close, but also a majority of the wall which has been constantly maintained to the standard required by its listed status, and it plays a significant part in maintaining the character of the village. Thanks.
Thank you. That was well timed. Dr. Whitcomb, who's the agent.
Thank you very much. So, 5 or 6 points, if I may. Is it all right if I sit down?
Yes, but
Thank you. First of all, this site is totally enclosed and is in accordance with the recently approved joint course strategy in that respect. As the planning officer made clear, the hedge on the southern side has grown up and affords protection from the countryside beyond. It will provide, secondly, the scheme will provide 2 affordable homes within the village. That's a significant benefit. Thirdly, it will contribute to the 5-year supply, which apparently doesn't exist at present. Fourth point is that I think the old plan is now dated and has almost been taken over by the provisions of the framework, the National Planning Policy Framework, which runs together with the presumption in favour of sustainable development, particularly where there isn't a 5-year supply. My fifth point concerns highways. The residents always knew that this phase 2 was a distinct possibility. The land upon which the widening will take place, to meet county standards, this isn't some sort of arbitrary standard that we've suddenly imposed on Barbie. It's been required at that width by the Highway Authority. That is within land owned by the developer who developed the first phase. So it's always been anticipated that it would happen like that. As for the drainage, we will provide attenuation within the site, so the flow from the site will be equivalent to a greenfield flow. If that flow is either too little or too great, it can be accelerated or held back. That is the whole purpose of a storage tank attenuation and any pumping that is necessary to regulate the flow levels. So there will be no harm to drainage considerations in terms of local circumstances and neighbouring gardens. I can't really see any clear-cut planning objection. Those benefits, those 4, 5, 6 benefits I've outlined, I think overcome in the balancing operation. It's always a balance in the planning debate, the removal of this small piece of wall at the front, which again is a requirement of the County Highway Authority. Thank you very much.
again, 3 minutes. Well done. Thank you, sir. Local member who traditionally stands underneath the tree. Councillor Evans.
Chairman, may I have the photograph of Balding Close from Daventry Road, please? Up the close, not at an angle. I haven't got one the other way around. What do you have?
That's going back.
That'll have to do. That, the other one will have to do.
Dizzy now. Want to be sick.
Sorry about this.
Sorry.
Back to the future.
This is all of Barbie, is it?
That'll do. Yeah. What I'll come to the point that I want to make about it anyway. Thank you, committee. Well, we seem to have even more hurdles to jump over now, because we've now got the joint core strategy, which I think a lot of villages thought, you know, it's going to be our saviour. Well, it doesn't look as if it's going to be that for some while yet. So we'll have to hope for the best, keep our fingers crossed and everything. But in the meantime, of course, we've got a hiatus. Obviously, this is outline only, so the access is an important consideration, as is the water. I'm here to speak both for the parish council, because I support the views that are given by the parish council, but also as the ward member. First of all, the question of the access. I think you will see, though it looks rather better from the other angle, this looks down towards the main road, Daventry Road. And in fact, what you can see here is a very sort of nice village, lots of greenery. Okay, there's no footpath, but there are only 3 houses there. And indeed, what we have is something very attractive and very suitable within the village. I would suggest that, in fact, to have the road and pavement put in there is going to do 2 things. It obviously is going to remove the grass on the left-hand side of the photograph and the trees, although I see there is something in late reps about replanting and so on, but there's going to be remarkably little space left. The road and pavement is already white-lined there, so I do know how much is going to be taken away, which that isn't shown on this photograph. However, what we are having in place of what is very verdant, we're going to have a suburbanised road, pavement running through to modern houses at the back of obviously some modern houses, but also there are 2 listed buildings on either side of that roadway. So I think it's actually quite important to remember that we're actually looking at changing a setting fundamentally. Obviously, one of the things that has happened in drawing out, now I do notice what the agent said about the land not belonging to the householders. However, the pavement is now clearly shown by the white lining as coming within 1 metre of one of the house's front windows. It's a bay window, and it comes within 1 metre of it. I don't think we've got anything there to demonstrate that. But that I can tell you is the case, but I don't know how to look specially to it. This is actually background development, and it's all very well to say that, in fact, it's now a nice contained spot. Yes, in a way it is. The hedge has grown up since Balding Close was built, the 3 houses that are there now. However, the inspector, when he did make a point of saying that this was an important green wedge. That's the house, top left. In fact, you can just see the line of the pavement, and it now comes within, well, very easy spitting distance of the front window. So we've got a green wedge, which the inspector found very important a few years ago. I don't think that the tall hedge up to the south changes that. Thirdly, of course, we have the listed wall, which has been referred to. What's actually going to happen to that listed wall is it's going to be 50% wider. This is actually important. Miss Cavalier has already referred to some of the recent history in relation to the wall, and in fact to remove what is a little bit of history, and there isn't much in Barbie, but that is one of the things that there is. We have got some walls, but we won't have any by the time that they've been taken away by this development. So those are some of the losses. We're going to lose the village feel of Balding Close. We're going to lose a green wedge, which was found important a few years ago, but apparently not important now. We're going to lose some ballistic wall, which is an important asset in the village, which doesn't have very many historic assets. And what is it going to gain? It's going to gain 6 houses, which are claimed to actually to contribute to maintaining and enhancing village facilities and services. 6 houses out of 400, I think not. Secondly, the entrance onto the main road, which is a flat run in itself, where cars frequently speed, and there is a blind bend immediately to the south. It doesn't seem to me to be a very sensible way of actually creating an access onto that Daventry road. I've already mentioned the pavement, which now comes within, certainly, you can see what you're watching on your television and lots of other things. So I would ask you to think about whether this is a sensible application. And the grounds for refusing it would be the loss of open space, important listed wall, which is actually going to be reduced, will be widened by 50%. It's going to change the character of the setting. It's going to overlook the people in Brackendale Drive. Moreover, I've come to the very last point now, and that is the water. I've heard what's been said this evening about the water and the runoff and what conditions are going to be imposed in relation to the water. There is flooding already on Daventry Road because of the inadequacy of the drainage for surface water. And in fact, this is now going to impinge upon Brackendale Drive as well. So I really do think that we have to think again about this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lowner. Members? Oh. It's an amazing sight. We don't very often get no hands go up quickly.
It's a new year, Chairman.
Councillor Frederick.
Thank you. Just a point of information. Really. On page 84, it says that 2 affordable dwellings are proposed in the 6 dwelling scheme. As far as my rudimentary maths goes, that doesn't equate to 40%, because it's actually 2.4 houses is 40%. Do we get a financial contribution for the extra 0.4?
My experience, you tend to round down and round up, depending on where you are. We'd like it down.
That's not the question I asked. Can we seek a financial contribution for the bit we're not getting?
Go on. I would suggest not, no. But if you want to put forward a case for why contribution should be sought.
Okay, thank you.
Right, Councillor Paul next.
Yeah, thank you. It's an observation, really, Chairman. I mean, for 6 houses, I can't see any reason why the wall needs to be touched. First and foremost, you know, lots of people go in and out of gates.
It's highways regulations, Councillor Paul.
Well, okay, that's fine, but also, you know, why does it need 2 footpaths? No, why do we need 2 footpaths?
It's simply down to the length of the road and the need to provide up to adoptable standards to serve more than 5 dwellings. The Highway Authority are adamant that is what's required in order to make the site acceptable in highway safety terms.
Yeah, thank you for the clarification.
Councillor Patchett.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I was going to say something similar in that I think that the driveway itself seems a very nice aspect, and I think that I don't agree with what Highways is saying. I mean, I know regulations are regulations, but I think it would be nice to just have 6 houses up there with the driveway as it is. And
Thank you.
My personal opinion.
Councillor Irvingsworth.
Yes, I will make some observation. First, highway, because now we have more than 5 dwellings, so they have their rule and regulations, so we cannot go around that. I have 2 observations. The first one is, if the wall is very important, can the wall be a reason to object to the application? Because that seems to be nearly one of the main reasons. Because if the owner of the 2 houses on each side knew that the verge didn't belong to them, when they bought the house, unfortunately they knew it might be a problem one day. So by not, because the grass didn't belong to the owner, they knew that one day something might happen to that. So therefore, we cannot say they were not aware. So the wall is a question. Also, is it outside of the confine of the village or it is not? Because if it's outside of the confine of the village, we have a good planning reason. If it's not, on appeal, I am quite certain that if it's not outside of the confine of the village, we will have a difficulty to, just because of the wall alone, to be a successful appeal for. So maybe I ask some guidance to our lawyer. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to ask the planning officer first, the 2 points you brought up.
With respect to the lawyer, the planning officer has to consider the planning merits of the application. I mean, the report clearly sets out the impact on heritage assets, and you've got in the report the comments of the conservation officer. It's acknowledged that the loss of the part of the wall, we're not talking all of the wall, we're talking 1.9 metres of what is a fairly lengthy wall, that will cause harm. In MPPF terms, that's less than substantial harm. You must weigh that harm against the public benefits. In this case, the public benefits are the provision of additional housing, contributing towards the housing supply, but that's seen against the MPPF, and the government's striving to boost significantly housing supply across the country. So it's in that context that benefit outweighs the harm caused to the heritage asset. With respect to the two other listed buildings in the setting that was referred to, again, the Conservation Officer considers that there isn't any adverse impact on the setting of those buildings. So in heritage assets, the harm caused by development is quite less than substantial. In terms of the confines of the village, there's an argument either way. It could be argued that in the context of paragraph 4.9 of the SAVE policy on restricted infill villages, that the site lies outside the confines of the village. That in itself is not sufficient grounds for refusing the application when you have regard to other material considerations, namely the MPPF, and also the physical relationship of the site and the changes that have been made to the site since the last appeal. You cannot ignore the fact that the hedge along the southern edge of the site now effectively contains the site visually, such that its impact on the wider character and wider landscape is limited. An argument can be made that it's outside the confines and therefore permission should be refused. I would suggest that the report has considered that issue, considered the benefits and other material considerations, including the joint core strategy, which is now adopted, and the MPPF, and weigh that particular consideration. One further thought with regards to confines is the 5-year land supply issue. We do not have a 5-year land supply. The other side, the applicants, or if we were to refuse this, the appellants would argue that the lack of a 5-year land supply renders your housing policy, particularly in respect of restricted infill villages, null and void, and that's set out in the MPPF, and therefore the issue of confines under that particular policy could not be argued, which then leaves you with the impact of the loss of the open space and how that affects the character and appearance of the village. And the reason I given earlier, we don't think that could be sustained at appeal.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, the wall itself, I think, is without doubt an attractive wall. It's an historic wall, despite the fact it has been rebuilt on a couple of occasions we've learned this evening. Now, the Conservation Officer makes a comment on this. Whilst the Conservation Officer isn't supporting its retention in its present length, is happy with the shortening of it, she does also mention that it's in the vicinity of listed buildings either side. And I wondered whether any of the photographs we've got shows the buildings either side, so we can see the setting of these listed buildings that are affected by it. I rather fancy there's not one there.
Through you, Chairman, I would hasten to add that the reason you can't see them is because of the tree cover either side of those. Just go back to the location plan.
No, I didn't want the bush.
Yeah.
The frontage, you see that large green area, which is a tree preservation order, effectively provides screening to the two buildings concerned. And the two listed buildings are the buildings outlined in red. I think some of the photographs taken along the Baldwin Close indicate along the north side there's quite an extensive evergreen hedge, and to the south there's additional planting. The fact remains that the conservation officers considered the issue of impact of the development on the setting and the widening of that road, and was judged not to have an adverse impact on the setting of the listed buildings. Clearly, if members take a different view, then the council would need to provide evidence, robust evidence, from a heritage advisor as to whether or not the setting of those buildings was adversely affected to such an extent that it outweighed the benefits of the proposal.
Okay. Councillor Patchett again.
Yeah, thank you again, Chairman. Just playing devil's advocate for a moment, it occurs to me that if you were applying for 5 houses on this site with 2 affordable, that would make it 40%, and you wouldn't have to do all the expensive roadworks and pathways because we 5 houses
You're 3 there already.
It's 3 plus 5.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Or 3 plus 5 or 3 plus 6.
Councillor Fletcher.
Just to carry on from Councillor Patchett, but are we obliged to accept highways proposals?
Yes.
It's a good question. You're not obliged to accept it, but if you reject it, you then need to substantiate that appeal in front of an inspector and the satisfaction of the inspector.
Why would you go to appeal?
Well,
No,
if we accept the building of the houses, but without the change of the driveway.
that's not the scheme that's before you.
Plus the fact the answer would be, if you allowed one like that, other people would be saying, well, so many off a private drive you allow, and this time you've exceeded the figure, so I want my figure.
We have in the past exceeded the figure.
Not by this amount we haven't. Councillor Chandler.
Thank you, Chairman. I think it's right that people should air these views, as it's very helpful to receive the clarification that we've received from the planning officer, as usual. As heritage champion, I feel I must say that the wall does sound a bit like George Washington's Act. And I would like, Chairman, to propose that we accept officer's advice and approve the application.
Thank you, Councillor Chandler. Do you have a second?
With a very heavy heart.
Thank you, Councillor Irving. Any more comments? Councillor Paul?
Yeah, if we can go back to the outline drawing, we're showing the green area with the listed buildings.
That's done here.
Eamon suggested that there were tree preservation orders on those green areas there. So would the tree preservation orders restrict the 6 metres plus that's got to be taken out of the footpath either side? Sorry, 2 metres either side.
The simple answer is the landscape officer has not identified any conflict with that tree preservation.
Oh, right, okay.
So I would have to say that no, there's no conflict.
Right, thank you, Chairman.
Quick one, Irving, sir.
Yes, because I said with a heavy heart, could we have, when the planning, when they decide the scheme, could we have it back in front of planning, or to see the design? Because I think the design is also very important in the setting to
We'd have to be called back in for planning reasons, given the decision last month.
Right. Eamon, do you want to make a comment on that?
My only comment is that a reserve matters application would be just like any other planning application, being the subject of consultations and publicity, and members are perfectly entitled under the delegation scheme to make a request at that particular time.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Right, we have a proposal that the application be approved and as per officer's advice, which has been seconded. All those in favour, please show. Those against? 10-1. The application is approved. Right, the next application is in Crick, and the number is 0858.
Okay, Chairman, those members of the Planning Committee who know Crick in the recent history, particularly Daventry, recently the development of the David Wilson site, which just lies to the east on the location plan. Basically, we see all the conservation orders. That development is ongoing at the moment, but the application site we're talking about sits at the end of Oak Lane and is accessed off Oak Lane. To the south sits the homestead, which is a listed building that's marked in red. And the Poplars, which is not a listed building, but a fine traditional local vernacular building to the north, which just sits outside the application site, but the application site effectively forms the grounds of the Poplars itself. Can you just go to the page? There. Application is a full application for the construction of an L-shaped property to provide accommodation on ground floor and accommodation in the roof space. Obviously, the elevation runs to the north-south, with parking provision both on-site to provide for the Poplars and the existing dwelling. To the north of the site, there's an existing outbuilding. I'll show you the photographs, but if members are minded to approve the application, we would propose an additional condition to require details of the alterations to that particular outbuilding, which would effectively be converted to provide garaging to both the proposed dwelling and the existing. Again, the starting point is the development plan. The development plan comprises the recently adopted joint core strategy and safe policies from the local plan. Interesting issue is that on the local plan, Crick is a limited development village, which means that it's one of the few villages that has a line drawn around it. And this particular site falls within that particular line, so there's no doubt the site and the application sits within the confines of the village. You may have an argument about whether or not you give weight to the housing policy, but the fact is that it is and has been accepted to be within the confines of the village where a small-scale development will be allowed. So the principle of development, in our view, is judged to be acceptable, and the application falls to be determined on the details. And really the issues are the access into the site, impact on heritage assets, namely the listed building to the south, and the impact of the amenity of adjoining residential properties and street scene in general. And again, in our view, the design is designed to be a fairly low-key building to effectively enclose the yard area that sits between the Poplars and the land that's being developed to the rear by David Wilson Homes. In terms of the impact on the heritage assets, you'll see the conservation officer who's assessed the proposal identifies no harm to the heritage asset. Whilst we would accept there's an impact, we do not consider that impact is harmful. So in terms of MPPF, there is no harm to the proposal or to the setting of the listed building. In terms of impact on the amenities of the adjoining properties, namely the homestead, the application has been amended to reduce the ridge height from 6.7 metres or 6.5 metres to 6 metres in the part of the dwelling that runs due north-south, and to delete a window in the southern elevation to avoid any direct overlooking of the garden area of the homestead. With those changes in mind, again, we consider the proposal accords with existing development plan policy. So having regard to development plan policy in terms of heritage assets, the principle of development and the impact on adjoining residential properties, the proposal is judged to accord with development plan policy. Having regard to the advice in the NPPF paragraph 14, where it does accord with the development plan policies, development should be approved without delay, and accordingly we recommend the application be approved, Chairman.
Thank you, Aaron. We have two speakers. First of all, Mr. Lowe from Parish Council.
Good evening. First of all, you already have, I think, a copy of the letter from the clerk to our Parish Council outlining the various reasons why we object to this proposal, and I won't go into those because they'll be dealt with by the objector and no doubt by our district councillor to some extent. The point I want to raise on behalf of the Parish Council is one of principle insofar as Amy has mentioned, there were some amendments to this plan made quite late in the process, which the Parish Council weren't informed of. We believe that they're significant and material, and although they may be considered by the applicant and the officer to be beneficial, nevertheless we believe they should go through the proper democratic process, and that the Parish Council should have the opportunity in full meeting to consider the new plans. And therefore the Parish Council would like this the applicant's guest to resubmit their application with the amendments.
Thank you, sir. Mrs. Jameson, who's against the
Do you
application.
mind if I come down to the...
You can come where you like, stand and sit and whatever.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Jill Jameson and I live at the Homestead, which is the adjoining building to this site. It's a Grade 2 building and it's believed to date from the 1500s. And I wish to object to this planning application on the following grounds. It is to be built within a metre of the listed wall, which will have undoubtedly an impact on the setting of the homestead. And it also incorporates land which actually belongs to the parish and is not in the ownership of the applicant. Pre-application advice was given for a single-storey dwelling. This proposal isn't. It has 2 bedrooms and a bathroom upstairs. The design has been found to be acceptable because it appears to be a barn conversion. This is debatable, as the homestead barn is constructed of ironstone with lime mortar and the poplars is predominantly stone with some brick. This house is to be of modern red-orange brick. The planning department also requested that particular regard was given to the street scene on Oak Lane, which has another listed building. As you can see, this proposal is of such a large scale that it will obliterate all the open aspect and views towards Cracks Hill from Oak Lane. It fills the space. And actually this is deceptive because these 2 buildings are closer together. Have the second slide. The application states that there will be 10 parking spaces, but these first 3, this section along here, up to approximately here, is parish land. It doesn't belong to the applicant. So, the largest tree also within the plan is this one, which is a TPO silver birch, which isn't shown as such on here. This is actually much smaller, and the view from here is across here, so actually it's not in that dimension. This one actually doesn't exist at all, it never has been. And you can see from this drawing the close proximity to this listed wall, which runs along here. Sorry, could I have the third slide? Thank you. Right, the top picture here shows the listed wall, which measures 2 metres. In the background you can see the silver birch, the TPO one here, which is it's a beautiful tree. Now this is the drawing that's been submitted, and it shows the listed wall approximately here. Now, as we've just heard The development has been reduced in size to 6 metres. Now, if that is 2 metres, then the new building is to it will project a further 4 above it, and this is more likely to be an accurate representation of what the new structure will look like. And as we are the custodians of this important heritage asset, and as such we must try and protect its setting for future generations, I would ask this final question: will this proposal have a significant impact on the setting of this important heritage asset? I believe it will, but that is for you to decide.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Local member, Councillor Lomax.
I think there is probably about 4 points to be made. And the first is that we haven't got a picture. Oh, yes, we have. Oak Lane. At the moment, this obviously is a cul-de-sac. And what will happen with this new building right at the end there is that in fact the cul-de-sac will become even more closed off. We see one car there. In fact, when I last visited earlier this week, there were several cars parked there, making it even more undesirable in terms of the effect upon listed buildings. At the back, beyond the wall, of course, we now have David Wilson Homes building quite a number of properties, 60 odd, I think, 40 odd, 60 odd. So that will become closed off, but at the very back, of course, there are 2 bungalows. So that was allowing a more spacious feel to the whole thing. This new building proposed will actually close it off, which I think is very unfortunate. And it will lose that feeling of space which is still left to Oak Lane. The second thing that I wanted to say about it was, of course, its proximity to the listed building, the homestead, and the listed wall, which I think is undesirable. And lastly, the point that I would like to make is that amongst our values, of course, we say that we want to communicate openly. And I'm sure it wasn't anything deliberate, and just one of these unfortunate things that happened. But I think actually to let people know on Christmas Eve that there are amendments to plans, and then not having plans available because the offices are closed, is actually rather undesirable. And I would like to think that in future there is a little bit more thought into this, so that in fact people have a proper opportunity to consider application amendments. And that's really all I would like to say, apart from please also consider the materials with which this proposed building is intended to be built.
Thank you, Councillor Hart.
I do want to say something else, Chairman, and that is about the archaeological condition. The archaeological condition as such refers to investigation and recording. What I would like to be assured about by the officers is that in fact anything that is recorded is actually deposited with Northamptonshire Heritage rather than just being kept in the planning papers at Daventry, and then it will be more available in the future should this planning application be accepted, approved this evening. Then at least that information will be available in the future to historians. Thank you.
Thank you. Anna, you'd like to come back?
Where do we start? I think there's 2 issues. First of all, with regard to the parish council's concern, I mean, I have some sympathy with obviously maintaining a sense of communication on planning applications. Clearly, we are working in a system that requires applications to be determined in fairly short periods of time. Now, it is a judgment call on officers to an extent, but it's not uncommon to seek amendments throughout the course of dealing with an application. And where I would disagree with the parish council on this is that the amendments that were secured where partly sought, or wholly sought to address concerns raised in respect of overlooking an impact on the adjoining property. My personal view is that those changes are not materially significant enough to warrant a formal reconsultation process. But clearly, if members have got concerns about that, that's for you to consider. But we have, through this forum, reported those changes to members. We've set out our assessment of those changes, and members clearly have got the original comments of the parish councillors and indeed the neighbouring properties to weigh against those particular changes and the recommendations of officers. So, in that sense, officers professionally will fairly regularly have to take a judgment as to whether or not the changes are so significant as to warrant formal reconsultation processes or formal resubmissions. And by and large, I think we get it right. We don't simply just ignore changes or have disregard to the comments and concerns raised by third parties. As regards NCC archaeology, they have recommended the condition. It's certainly my understanding that any scheme of investigation always includes what to do with any findings of how it's recorded. And it's my understanding that subsequently, those reports are subsequently held by the County Council as the archaeological unit. What other points?
You wanted to come back
the wall, the height of the wall. The case officer visited the site today. My understanding is you'll see in that photograph that there's two heights to the wall. The forward part of the wall, closest to the homestead, effectively on the right-hand side of that photograph, is 2.1 metres, measured from this side, the application side, and up to 2.4, where it's sort of, you can see where it steps up just by there. Again, the changes proposed avoid overlooking of the neighbouring property, and really our view is that the impact on the amenities of the neighbouring property have been safeguarded as a result of the amendments proposed and now before members. Clearly, members may take a different view in terms of proximity to the wall, the proximity of the building, of the height, and its impact on the amenities of that particular property. That's a judgment for you to make, members, but as officers we consider the relationship to be acceptable in terms of residential amenity. In respect to heritage, the comments of the Conservation Officer who advises on heritage assets are set out in the report, and they clearly state that they neither consider it should harm the setting of any nearby listed buildings, given the siting, scale and proposed design. So, having regard to those three aspects, they make a judgment that the proposal is acceptable in terms of its impact on heritage assets. That's all I've got to say at this stage, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Owen-Swift.
Yes, I'm a SAD councillor. During the holiday period, I read what we received for a councillor. The little, twice a month we receive a document via the post. And in that document, it's about the ombudsman in planning, the role of the ombudsman in planning. And one example was a lack of consultation. A member of the public said that he had no time to be consulted, and he went to the ombudsman, and the ombudsman decided that some harm had been done by not having the public being consulted. So if that is the case, and I have no reason, I just read it during the holiday, and I kept it on site because it's all about ombudsman and the role of ombudsman in planning. If that is the case, the officer thinks that the modification are not substantial. The parish seems to have another view. So could we put the planning application, defer the planning application, that the parish can make their view and see it at the next planning committee? Thank you.
Maria, you'd like to say something?
Just to confirm, I think I'm familiar with the document that you're talking about, but I can confirm that we've got no ombudsman's complaints against this council relating to poor consultation practices in planning.
No, but you have not, but you can have.
That's my point. I mean, there has been a complaint of that nature that was not upheld.
Yeah, I think the complaint that we referred to the Ombudsman case was they haven't carried out some statutory procedure. What we're saying is here we've carried out a statutory procedure. And basically the phrase I was going to use is from the parish council's point of view as it's set out here, things can only get better basically. They've set out a list of things they object to. The officers have tried to get something to make an improvement. All the parish council are either going to say is it changes nothing and we still object, or we withdraw our objection to that part of the proposal. So I don't really see how it changes anything, to be quite honest.
It is quite common to have this sort of thing, negotiations at last minute that benefit the people who have objections to it. So it's not uncommon to get
It's
these.
an obligation.
Yes.
Chairman, I just wanted to clarify because, strangely enough, in that consultation with Maya, I would be surprised that if you have that document, because it's for councillor, it's a document we arrive in our house and it's under cellophane. And it was just, I think the title so beef up or something like that, the ombudsman power, and that people can have more say in the planning system. So that's all what I have to say. I think what I hear what Mr. Thirdfield said, and I have heard what the parish said. In that case, it's maybe not relevant, but I think the ombudsman is going to be more and more prevalent because, as you know, it's becoming more and more difficult to refuse or to defer with the planning view. So people might have different view now and have recourse to the ombudsman. So that's all what I wanted to say.
Thank you. Councillor Patchett.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I think that a 6 metre, was effectively two-storey building alongside of that wall built in red brick would look awful. I think that a single-storey stone built, but a fake barn conversion would look much nicer. I think I'm going to propose refusal on the ground that it isn't in keeping with the character and appearance of the locality, and there is an impact on the amenity of the listed buildings in accordance with the policies, and I don't think it applies to the safety of local policies as well either.
Okay, do you have a seconder? Councillor Frenchman. Would you wish to speak, Councillor Frenchman?
Not at the moment, thank you.
Okay, well the next person is Councillor Paul.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I do have sympathy with the parish council. By the same token, I totally respect officers' views in as much as the impact and the objections of the parish council were taken into account with regard to the amendment. It is often the case when parish councils will come back to the BBC or in fact the town council and say we don't have enough time because it hasn't done this, it hasn't done that, it hasn't done the other. However, there is one period in the course of a year when we do have restricted service, and that is over the Christmas period. So I would respectfully suggest that, perhaps a little more leniency during that period could be afforded. I would also draw your attention to page 97, the last paragraph of the Environmental Protection Conservation Officer, regarding if you're minded to approval, and she suggested one or two conditions in there, which if we are minded to approve, then I would be totally in favour if they were put forward as conditions, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Paul. I am advised that the amended application was on the website on Christmas Eve for anybody to see.
Yeah.
No, from Christmas Eve onwards. I don't mean you're going to look at it at Christmas Eve.
Can't go up to the man who's going yo ho ho.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I have no more speakers, Liz. I mean, we do indeed.
We need to come back because it's against us,
Okay.
Sorry, just to be Chairman, my understanding of Councillor Patchett's concerns with respect to single story, and I'd just point out that the majority of the building that sits alongside the wall is actually, in actual fact, single story. Only the south facing gable end is the part of the property that provides accommodation, effectively the roof space. So what we're talking about is probably less than a half a metre to the ridge. Is in effect the two-story element as described. I also didn't quite catch Councillor advised that it was in conflict with SAVE policy, and I just wondered which policies that those were that you identified conflict with.
Councillor Patchett, do you want to say?
Well, they're basically, I mean, the officers are saying that the proposal was considered to be in accordance with the state policies, and I consider that they're not.
Well, again, through you, Chairman, I mean, in my opening introduction, I identified the site to be within the confines of the village, so therefore it accords with the Limited Development Policy, HS 11. Are there other policies? There's policy EN 42, there's policy GN 2, which deal with more generally with amenity. Are those the policies that are being referred to?
Yes, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Patchett. Councillor Luke and then Councillor Frenchman next.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I think I can vouch with officers' advice on this. I think the Parish Council were given enough time to consider the amendments, and the amendments they asked for have been put forward. So I really can't see that we can change it now and start building a single-storey house. But I do think that it would be important that as Councillor Paul said, that the limited development rights would be limited to save any overdevelopment on the site. So if we could have that put in, I think that would be a good idea. Thank you, Chairman.
Again, for you, Chairman, condition number 8 removes permitted development rights. As does condition 5 in respect of any of the windows.
So your concerns would be addressed. Councillor Frenchman.
Yes, can we have a look at the slide that that Mrs Jameson put up with the outline of the building, please? That one. I have to say that when I read this document, I couldn't see anything wrong with this development. And when I looked at the drawings on the website, I also couldn't see anything wrong with it. But if these drawings that we have up on the screen are anything to go by, then there's a lot to get exercised about. Firstly, there's the accuracy of the top right-hand picture, which obviously doesn't show anything near a 6-metre building if that wall is over 2 metres high, as I think has been indicated. It shows a building that's only 4 metres high. Perhaps the officers could comment on that. Secondly, the bottom one, which I don't know, and again officers need to tell me, is that a true reflection of the height of the building over the wall?
Hang on.
Sorry, Chairman, again, in terms of the... Sorry, can you just go back to that slide? Yeah, I mean, in terms of the bottom, which it's not a scale drawing, so...
It says it's a scale drawing.
Well, it says it's a scale.
I don't think you can put any weight on that.
Whether or not you can derive from that perspective, and it's a two-dimensional...
You can actually see the ridge of that blue house is higher than the chimney on the adjacent house. I don't know if it's actually going to be higher than the chimney on the adjacent house. That, to me, that looks like that's been stuck on the screen. The photograph has perspective and disappears into the distance. I don't think that is a true representation. You can see the height of the chimney.
In terms of the drawing, the top right-hand corner with the 2 trees in it, yeah, there's a line there that shows the wall. I can advise the officer's been there and measured the wall today. It's a 2-step wall, closest to the homestead, and this property isn't closest to the homestead, it's further away. It's actually it's closest 0.7, 7.5 metres away from the northern corner of the homestead, so it may well be at the higher part of the wall. But it's up to members. If you're happy that you can come to a decision based on the information before you, fine, make that decision. Alternatively, if you feel that the information being put forward by third parties and there's not enough for you to formally determine the impact of that development on the amenities and the neighbouring property, then you can defer it for a site visit. The alternative, you accept the advice of officers.
Okay, any more comments? Councillor Patchett?
I think, having listened to the officer, there seems to be some doubt, and I think that the Councillor Evans' proposal of a deferral to sort out these issues, I think is probably the best way forward. I think a site visit would also be a good idea.
Okay, through the Chairman, I was suggesting a site visit in order for members to actually see the site for themselves and then be able to fully assess it rather than any concession that there was something procedurally wrong with the process. The proposal that the issues as far as the officers are concerned are set out in the report. We're satisfied the amendments address policy and the concerns of the local residents, and our recommendation remains the same. If members feel that they haven't got sufficient information, then by all means prepare for a site visit. If you feel a site visit would assist you in your determination of the application.
Well, we've got two proposals now. Well, we have the first proposal, which we're going to vote on, is for a refusal. Okay. So
Chairman, can you clarify that? Because it's the same proposer. So is he looking to amend his proposal, and does his seconder agree? That's what we've got to deal with.
Yeah, right. Chairman, I would like to amend my proposal to a deferral rather than a refusal.
Are you saying a deferral for a site visit?
Yeah.
Full stop. Okay. So we need a planning.
Planning reasons being that we need to assess the character and the impact of the development on the.
That's fine. That's a planning reason. Right. And the seconder will still second it, Councillor.
Yes, I'm carrying on from what Councillor Patchett said, is there seems to be a conflict of evidence here, and I want to assure myself of what is the correct situation rather than relying on some drawings here which conflict with each other.
Councillor Paul, a quick one before we go to the vote.
Well, yes, Chairman. I mean, I'm looking at the advice of officers, and I'm looking at a screen with third-party information, which allegedly is to scale. The wall is 2 metres. If I look at the centre drawing at the top, there is the dotted line showing the top of the wall. Clearly, the top of the wall is the eaves of the pitched roof. And it wouldn't represent the scale and mass that the block on the left-hand side of the bottom picture would represent, because it would be diminishing into the background. I don't see a need for a site visit, Chairman. I think it speaks for itself.
Nevertheless, there is some confusion about what people think and what the height is of this and where this should be. And so we have a proposal that a site visit should take place, which has been seconded. All those in favour, please show.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Those against?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
We'll have a site visit then, okay? I won't use a first vote, because I don't use it in other people's villages. So there'll be a site visit, and it will be come back to the next planning committee. Okay, the next application is in Arlingworth. The application number is 0913. We won't deal with it until the door is shut.
Refusal.
Yeah.
Okay, hang on.
To make the start.
Oh, sorry, Keith, I do beg your pardon.
It's the easy one.
Well, it just covers like cover really. It's split on area basis, and sometimes you get the easy ones, or sometimes you get all of them like last time. Yeah, this is obviously a member of the committee's application, which is why she's had to leave. It's a listed building in Arlingworth, and the proposal is for an internal doorway to be put between the bathroom and the bedroom. Apparently, because she doesn't want to look at the door, she also wants to put a cupboard in front of the door to match a cupboard that's on the other side of the room. So it's effectively, you go through the cupboard to go through the door to go into the bathroom. That shows you the cupboard that's on the other side of the room. It is similar to that.
Chest of drawers could be for sale then, could it?
All in the way.
Or in the way, yeah.
So basically, it's as simple as that. Conservation officer's got no issues with it. So it's recommended for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Obviously, the only reason it's here is because it's a member. Can I have a proposal? Councillor Patchett?
I'll propose it.
Councillor Patchett, you'll second it. All those in agreement, please show.
Can we not have a site visit 7 o'clock on Saturday night?
No.
We'll call them back in and say it was refused. We'll then become part of the list of
Get
bills.
the for a site visit. 10 mil.
Tell her it was refused, right?
Not like three.
Oh.
They're on the site visit.
I am not having you in my bedroom.
There were certain people that wanted to buy the chest of drawers.
It's French.
So they're cheap.
The next application is in Abbey South, which is 0993.
Mr. Chairman, very modern residential estate. The application is a sort of middle property of a group of 3 detached dwellings, which form a sort of roughly a small crescent. The application itself proposes to construct effectively a 2-storey extension at the front, but move further forward than the existing main part of the dwelling. The effect really is to create a gable-fronted property similar to its adjoining neighbours. So in our view, the proposal itself doesn't adversely impact on the street scene, because effectively you'll end up with 3 properties with very similar sort of gable frontage to it. Although it results in the loss of the garage, there's sufficient space at the front of the site to provide for parking. We do accept that there is an impact on the adjoining neighbour, as you'll see from the photographs. We've judged that impact to be insufficient to warrant refusing the application. Clearly, members are invited to consider the recommendation and the views of the local member. Thanks, Chairman.
Thank you. Do we have an Abbey South person here? No. Right. Councillor Paul first, Councillor Irving Swift second.
Well, the member whose absence has been recorded this evening twice, because I'm deaf, has said that she has no objection to it via a text to me, and wished me to convey those comments. The other local member is Councillor Rover, who has put in a submission opposing the development, which I do have some sympathy with. It is a crescent, very compact. I'm almost minded to say that, overdevelopment, scale and mass. But I will reserve my judgment at this moment in time, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Paul. Councillor Irving Swift, then Councillor Frenchman.
Yes, the fact that if it's in front of us, it's because of the impact with the neighbour, the overbearing impact with the neighbour. So that is a question of judgment, but as all those houses are quite tied together, is that overbearing or not? I cannot.
This is photographs from inside the neighbour's house that I'm going to take you through now.
So where would it be?
It would be this
There,
bit here.
in front.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the main square.
So it's that, basically what?
It's effectively squaring off the front of the house. So the projection will come from the right-hand side of the photograph to no further forward than the left-hand side of the door. Effectively no further forward when the car is. But clearly that space is filled to a height of 2 stories. And yes, it does affect that bay window, the neighbouring property. But our view is that the bay window looks forward and not directly to the side of it. So any impact is to the side of it. Clearly, when you're sitting in the room, your views will be more primarily directly forward. But clearly, when you come out the front door and you look at through the side panel of the bay window, you're going to be aware of a wall much closer to the property than it currently exists.
But can I have a clarification? If the person who puts a planning application will have a single story, will he need planning application?
No.
So basically we are talking just about the above story.
Yeah.
Well, I think you can consider the fallback, but in the absence of any other development that may or may not be PD, I think you're being asked to judge this application as it stands. I certainly would advise caution about considering what they may or may not be able to do as PD without knowing what that would be.
Thank you. Councillor Frenchman.
I think, as has been said earlier, it seems a lot of effort for very little gain for the household, except for obviously incorporating the garage. I think that the view from the neighbours will be slightly impinged, but officers have judged it with the 45-degree rule to be acceptable. So I would propose that we accept officers' advice.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder?
Yes.
I'll take Councillor Luke because I've got her down to speak next. Would you like to say something as well?
Yes, please. Yes, I looked at this application when we got our planning agenda, and I really couldn't see anything wrong with it. Taking into account Councillor Albert's view, but that's his view. I mean, some of the extensions, and I'll be taking each planning application on its merit, but some of the extensions that you see around Daventry, this is far, far better than a good many. And I think we should, I'm happy to second this proposal.
Thank you, Councillors. Right, we've got a proposal that the application be approved as per officer's advice. It's been seconded as well. All those in favour, please show. It's unanimous, isn't it? Right. The application is approved. Oh my gosh, it's 20 to 8. Oh dear.
One more.
I know.
You can drag it out.
The straightforward one. I'll tell you what the joke is afterwards, Matt does. Right, the next one is TPA. So you're doing this, Maria?
Me again.
Oh, you're doing it, sorry.
Yeah, as you signed application for a tree preservation order to be confirmed. We've basically got the responses there to the consultation, which effectively amount to it might make it more difficult for future maintenance. And you see we've answered that by saying, we'll work together with people, although they have to have permission. We do work together with people in such circumstances. Just wanted to say, really, for those who were on the recent bus trip to Edston Park, you'll be aware of what a really wonderful place it is, to be quite honest. And, we actually went in from the southern end, so you didn't see any of this because this is all the northern end. And there's also, as you'll see as part of the TPA, stuff that goes outside the actual park itself and crosses over to the more historic area around the back of the village. But I think you'd all agree there's some pretty magnificent specimens there, and obviously we've got the setting of the hall as well to take into account. The honest truth of the matter is we probably should have done this a long time ago, really, but like all these things, it requires resources, so we've done it now while the trees are still there. I think part of the concern is, to be fair, that we are looking for an alternative use for that hall, as you know. And certainly the trees that are affected along the driveway, we suspect, as you'll see there, that one in the middle there, that's coming down the driveway from the village. We suspect there may well be some pressure for widening the access, etc. So I think we just want to make sure that we have got protection on the trees should that come to issue. It is a particularly tight entrance to the village, which is probably, if the truth be known, why did take you in that way. Plus, obviously, we wanted to look at the lodges, and I think they're just right to the south of the picture. You can just see some of the lodges creeping in there around the lake area. But obviously, we think it's a wonderful group, sets of trees, and well worthy of protection. As I say, we do say that we will cooperate with landowners, provided they are sensible in terms of maintenance in the future. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Patron, thank you.
Yes, I think that it's a really sensible idea. My main question is the green band that's north of there, I suppose. Is it north of there?
Yeah.
There. Is that affected by any of the SUE developments?
Yes, that's partly why it's in there, I think, because there's a concern the SUE will be affecting that area.
So they'll be protected for that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know what you do. Do we just, can I say, propose that we accept this report?
You can indeed. Councillor Chancellor next.
Yes.
Oh, do we have a seconder first of all?
That would be
Right, okay, you're second.
And I just wanted to say that I did have reason to visit the Overston Hall itself just before Christmas, and I did eventually find that route to it, which is not the easiest and most obvious, but it is well worth the trip if you go that way. But you need strong springs on your car because the road is not at all made up.
Is it a public road?
Yes. Some of those, well, it is as far as the gateway. But I had a reason to, because of the church. Beyond those signs, you're effectively in the property that belongs to the New Testament Church of God. But I thought that I had divine inspiration. So I happily seconded the proposal.
Thank you. Councillor Swift, and then we'll go to the vote.
I was going to
Oh, you just a second.
Yes.
Oh, no, so we've got 30 seconds to kill. Right, we've got a proposal that we accept the advice, and which has been seconded. All in agreement, please show. Sensible advice. Right, that concludes the planning committee.
Exactly on time.
Exactly on 8:15. Councillor Irving Swift.